And go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels, and you guessed it, every day until they get those shocks actually banned from the JRC. We're going to continue to hammer on this subject. We are going back to the FDA Executive Summary for April the 24th, 2014. Now, before we get into anything, as always, folks, we are going to be including the link to this very lengthy document and the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. Guys, please sign that. It's very important. These guys are just going to continue to abuse these kids until something's actually done about that center. Also, if you have young children around you, please listen to this via your headphones, because some of the topics that we discuss when talking about the JRC are extremely disturbing and definitely not for young ears. So, without further ado, we are going and moving on to 4.4.2 behavioral, where we left off yesterday. Now, in advance, if I stumble over any of these words, or if I mispronounce these words, I'm not necessarily best with unfamiliar scientific jargon, then please just excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and ask for forgiveness right away. All right, so that out of the way. The most common approach for the treatment of SIB, which, as we know, that's the acronym for self-injurious behavior, and aggressive behavior in individuals with intellectual impairment and developmental spectrum disorders, is behaviorally based. Research has demonstrated that for many individuals with SIB, is socially medicated and I missed an entire sentence. Let me start over. The most common approach for the treatment of SIB and aggressive behavior in individuals with intellectual impairment and developmental spectrum disorders is behaviorally based. Research has demonstrated that for many individuals on SIB is socially medicated and warrants environmental modifications. Iwata, Pace, et al., 1994. Obviously, if you have an autistic child, you're aware that you have to kind of arrange environment to be a little bit more sensory friendly, so that should be pretty familiar to you. Determining the function of SIB and aggressive behavior and selecting treatments based on functions is important for successful treatment. Functional assessments allow for identification of the relations between SIB and aggressive behavior and relevant antecedents and consequences on an individual basis. Iwata, Dorsey, Slipher, and Bauman and Rickman, 1982, 1994. Iwata et al. 1994, Harding et al. 2005. The results of functional assessments subsequently guide the process of selecting appropriate and functionally relevant behavioral interventions. Cunning and colleagues 2002 conducted a quantitative analysis of behavioral research on the treatment of SIB, which included a literature search covering the period from 1964 to 2000. This search yielded 396 articles, 706 participants on the treatment of SIB. Most research participants are male and diagnosed with severe profound intellectual disability. The mean outcome of all reported treatments was an 83.7% reduction in SIB from baseline to treatment, and most treatments were successful in reducing SIB at least 80% using a variety of behavioral techniques. The authors concluded that the use of reinforcement-based interventions has increased during the past decade, whereas the use of punishment-based interventions has decreased less. Most treatments have been highly effective in reducing SIB. Nevertheless, the disorder persists in spite an abundance of research suggesting that a greater emphasis should be placed on prevention. Oh God, here we go. There's this ableist bullshit where they have to come cure us all. bear me. I have the same right to life that you do, Karen. Just gonna say. This is why, I'll say it 1,000 times, we need more autistic people and people with ADHD in research. Just saying. Biased, ableist. Ugh. Moving on. Moving on. The behavioral treatment of SIB and aggressive behavior has been extensively studied in the literature, and for the most part is based upon principles of operant conditioning first described by B.F. Skinner. Thus, aggression by individuals with developmental disabilities is believed to be a learned behavior or set of behaviors. The individual has learned that aggressing towards another individual achieves a desired outcome. The aggressive behavior becomes functionally related to the consequences that reliably follow it. Okay, this is garbage. Okay, that's garbage. First of all, not all intellectual disabilities are the same. And I'm getting real tired of them continuing to group them all together like that. Part of the problem with the medical model is its goddamn cookie cutter approach, which does infinitely more damage than it does good. You need to cater treatment to each individual with a disability to that specific person. This cookie cutter approach is what's caused so much damage and so much trauma, especially to us Gen X autistics. Of course, things haven't gotten too much better, but at least there's more awareness of how messed up thinking like this actually is these days, as opposed to when we first started. But basically, this idea that we've learned that being aggressive towards another gets us a desired outcome. Again, you're turning us into bullies. You're turning us into these selfish individuals who have no empathy or sympathy for others, and we are just simply committing violence to get something we want. That is not what's going on. Oh my god. Oh my god. When I was having meltdowns as a child, when I would bang my head on the floor, it had nothing to do with me trying to acquire anything. A snap is called a snap for a reason. There is no reason for it. When that aggression comes out, there is no me trying to obtain like a chocolate or something. I don't know. This is how stupid I find this kind of thinking. No. No. Meltdowns come when one is completely overwhelmed by frustration, by anger, even by sadness and grief. That's when that comes out. We're not trying necessarily to obtain anything from it. We are just releasing that frustration out. Yes, that does come out as extremely aggressive behavior. Yes, it does come out as self-injurious behavior. I'm not going to sit here, lie to you, and tell you that it doesn't. Because it does. But at the same end of the coin, these behaviors are not being engaged in to obtain something or to get attention. God, I've heard that so often. It's just to get attention. No, attention has nothing to do with it. At all. At all. At the point we have gotten to that point, we're not even thinking logically. We're not trying to manipulate anyone. We're not trying to get anything. At that point, we are simply a physical embodiment of a release of emotions. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. which is why I always say to you all the time, I keep trying to hammer it into your head. Behavior is communication. Because if you understand that behavior is communication, instead of thinking it's a means to an end to obtain something, then you can begin to understand. You can go back, you can start to think. And when you start to think, you start maybe thinking of ways to find out what triggered that person, what set them off, and then work with that person in order to figure out a solution so they don't snap again. My God, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. But anyway, sorry about that, Brant. God, I hate people. This is the same crap that upset me this morning, by the way, if you all see my tweets, but I won't go into that, or I'll go on another rant, and this will be a 2-hour video. Moving on. Various positive and negative reinforcement paradigms have been demonstrated success in reducing and significantly eliminating a self-injurious behaviors and aggression towards persons and objects. A basic tenet of behavioral interventions for SIB and aggressive behavior is that early and effective intervention is essential in order to impact behavior change. The research synthesis by Horner et al. 2002 showed that the early use of behavioral interventions can result in reductions of challenging behaviors by 80 to 90%. A negative corollary is that in the absence of intervention, challenging behaviors tend to persist in individuals with developmental disabilities. Murphy et al. 2005. Now, here's the weird thing. There are some positive behavioral interventions, but the number one known is ABA, and we on this channel have gone over some of the horror stories of people who have gone through ABA. ABA was actually created by the very same gentleman who also created gay conversion therapy. So, yeah, when it comes to behavioral interventions, please dig and do your research first. Moving on. Just wanted to make sure that that was covered. There are a wide variety of behavioral interventions that have been employed for the treatment of SIB and aggressive behavior in individuals with developmental disabilities and or limited intellectual function. God, I hate behavioral interventions essentially fall into 4 broad categories. 4.4.2.1. Hold up. There we go. Reinforcement-based treatments. There are several reinforcement schedules that have empirical support for use in severe behavior problems. Traditionally, a distinction is made between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. However, both have the goal of eliminating an unwanted or undesirable behavior. Positive reinforcement paradigms generally reward the individual for exhibiting appropriate behaviors, whereas negative reinforcement paradigms, e.g., timeout, withdrawal of privileges, food, play activities, etc., that's ABA. I want you to think about that, what they're saying right now. Withdrawal of privileges, no food, play activities. Think about that. Think about that. Basically, those are there to punish us for not being normal, okay? It's literally punishing us for things that come from our disability that we can't help. The individual for exhibiting an unwanted behavior or non-compliance with various requests. Remember, I told you about that non-compliance thing. They want us compliant. They want us obedient to let them touch us, but that is dangerous when they get older because in ABA, when you are taught to say yes every time, whether or not you are comfortable, imagine the real world connotations for that when For example, somebody's touching you in a way they shouldn't. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Moving on. The individual for exhibiting an unwanted behavior or noncompliance with various requests. The term punishment is controversial in that it is often interpreted as consisting as physical punishment. No, Karen. Oh my god, no. Karen. You just use sleep deprivation, food deprivation. But it's not physical, because we're not hitting them. God almighty, help me. But in fact, there are several different types of negative reinforcement programs that are utilized, including time out, withholding desirable or tangible objects, and restraint, among others. Yes, restraint is totally, completely safe. Nothing's ever gone wrong with restraint. Dude, do you want a list? Would you like the list? I've got like at least about enough volumes of cases where restraint gone wrong that there could probably be, I don't know, like 3 freaking major libraries. And that's just off of the top of my head. That's not listing every single one. But anyways, among others, negative reinforcement schedules may be less useful with respect to SIB and aggressive behavior, as these behaviors are particularly susceptible to socially mediated escape and avoidance contingencies, as the severity of the behavior often requires termination of ongoing activities, such as classroom activities, or other treatment programs. Of course, we must focus on everybody else. Yes, why would we care what the person who's having the issues is going through? They're disturbing us in our normal lives. God, I hate people. Moving on. Thus, terminating an activity may be analogous to a timeout, which results in actually reinforcing the very behavior one is trying to eliminate. Non-contingent reinforcement (NCR) is scheduled to occur at a continuous interval without regard for whether or not the individuals are engaging in appropriate behavior for SIB and aggressive behavior. Availability of NCR is not contingent on behavior of an individual. NCR has been shown to be an effective means for reducing frequency of severe problem behavior. Fisher, Iwata, Malazewski, 1997, Hanley, Piazza, and Fisher, 1997, Vollmer, Iwata, Zarcone, Smith, and Malewski, 1993, Wilder, Draper, Williams, and Higby, 1997. Other reinforcement schedules are based on the concept of differential reinforcement. That is, the appropriate behaviors an individual engages in are reinforced, and target behaviors are ignored based on pre-identified schedule. Oh my god. I've tried to tell you this morning. My god. Just ignore them. They're acting up. They want attention. They're trying to obtain something. No, Karen, that is not what's going on. Moving on. Oh, I didn't think I'd get triggered reading a freaking FDA executive summary, but my god, the hell is wrong with people? Okay. This is a. Sorry. Allergies. Okay. Okay, in differential reinforcement, other behaviors, DRO individuals are reinforced for not engaging in SIB and aggressive behavior for a set period of time. It's the stick and carrot, folks. God, it's insulting. DRO schedules require continuous monitoring by a therapist to determine whether the criterion for reinforcement, i.e., no responding throughout the DRO interval, has been met. Vollmer et al. 1995. Other variations include differential reinforcement of incompatible behaviors, DRI, and the differential reinforcement of low rates of behavior, DRL. In a DRL schedule, individuals are provided with reinforcement for engaging in behavior that is not compatible the target behaviors in a DRL schedule, the predetermined acceptable rate of SIB is established, and individuals receive reinforcement for engaging in a rate at or lower than that of a predetermined rate. In reinforcement schedules, the reinforcement can come in form of social attention, access to preferred items or activities, or a brief break from demands. Wacker et al. 1997. Okay, so we went over that. I'm not going to review what we just went over, or I will go on like a massive, really long rant. So let's go ahead and close this out for now. I don't really have another video to go with this today. So we'll go ahead and close out here. Now, folks, before we go, we don't get that many views on this channel. The few that we do get from time to time tend to get removed. So please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this afternoon. As always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.